We now have the officers from the NBN Co. I welcome Mr Stephen Rue, the Chief Executive Officer. Would you care to make an opening statement?
Yes, please. I'll be short, though, I promise you, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you.
Again, it's great to be back in Canberra with you this evening. I've got with me Gavin Williams, our Chief Development Officer, Regional and Remote. Now, our Chief Customer Officer, Anna Perrin, was originally due to join the committee tonight. Unfortunately, she's got COVID and is quite seriously unwell, so not able to appear this morning. But
well, we wish her well.
Thank you, and she will come to the committee at a future hearing. I will be brief, as I said, but let me open with our key financial highlights for the first half of fiscal 24, or the 6 months to 31 December 23. I'm very pleased to report that NBN is on track to meet all our key financial targets the company set for the fiscal year, as outlined in our Corporate Plan 24. During the half, we achieved total revenue of $2.75 billion, up 5% on the prior corresponding period. Our earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortisation, otherwise known as EBITDA, was $1.99 billion, up 10% on last year. And our national broadband network now has 8.58 million premises connected and accessing a service, which equates to over 20 million people. We continue to push fibre deeper into communities and to improve our fixed wireless and satellite networks. This saw capital expenses in this half year of $1.87 billion, up 32% on last year, but the feature of this spend was the delivery by 31 December of 2 million premises in the fibre to the node footprint, with the ability to obtain a fibre to the premise connection. And as promised, this means that as of 31 December, 3 in 4 premises in our fixed line network can achieve wholesale speeds of between 500 megabits per second and 1 gigabit per second. Offsetting this spend was the receipt of more than $500 million during the first half of the financial year as an equity injection from the Commonwealth as part of the government's $2.4 billion commitment toward fibre upgrades across the nation. It's core to our strategy that we make these investments now. It's part of a shared vision with government to ensure that all Australians can reap the economic and social benefits of a faster, deeper capacity NBN network today and in the years to come. We operate in a competitive market. Enhancing competition was one of the reasons NBN was established. We create competition and we face competition. This is a good thing. Competition delivers the best possible outcome for customers. First of all, I'd like to reiterate that net additions to the NBN network in calendar 2023 was 50,000 connections. There's obviously a lot of new greenfield or residential development in this number, helped by the demand for new housing. This growth in our customer base comes in the context of expanding competition from other industry players. Competition can be seen in winning new development buildings, in certain multi-dwelling buildings, in mobile operators using surplus spectrum to sell 4G, 5G and fixed wireless access services, and of course in low-orbit satellites. Competition has never been stronger, and this is healthy for the industry, for NBN and for consumers. Consumers on our network tell us that the main reason they choose an NBN alternate is to seek a faster internet connection or the perception of an unreliable service. This is one of the many reasons why we are expanding our fibre to the premise footprint and building out greater speed and capacity on our fixed wireless network. And we're rapidly making NBN future-proof. Data demand has grown tenfold in the last decade. The average Australian home has 22 internet-connected devices today. We forecast it will have 33 by 2026 and 40 by the end of the decade. We're investing in the NBN network to ensure our network is the best equipped and provisioned network in Australia to accommodate the huge demand that is coming. And of course, accommodating the ability to carry large volumes of data is our competitive advantage. As I said earlier, 75% of the fixed line footprint, or some 8.4 million premises, are now close to gigabit capable. More than 3.5 million premises are now able to order upgrades from legacy copper technology to full fibre. We continue to see positive momentum in the demand for these full fibre orders, which saw an average of 7,000 orders a week across November and December 23. And the total number of premises upgraded to FTTP, or fibre to the premise, is now over 200,000. Since my last appearance, the company announced its intention to consult industry on further improved speed tiers on our fixed wireless network, including proposing to increase the wholesale speed of our most popular existing wireless plan to up to 100 megabits per second and increase the download speeds on our fastest new high-speed tier to be up to 400 megabits per second, all at no additional wholesale cost. This means those consumers remaining on our Sky Muster satellite network benefit from reduced congestion and are therefore able to achieve better speeds too. As this committee may know, on 1 July last year we launched our first ever uncapped data usage satellite plan, Sky Muster Plus Premium, with anticipated typical busy period download speeds of 48 megabits per second and burst upload peak speeds of 100 megabits per second available on the NBN satellites for the very first time, subject to fair use and shaping. On 1 December 23, we also introduced 2 additional uncapped data plans that were designed to ensure that we can meet the needs and budgets of remote homes and communities. These new Sky Muster Plus Premium plans have been well received by end users and have grown to almost 31,000 customers in just 7 months. The business case for an ultra-fast, deep-capacity NBN network has never been stronger. Last week, we released new economic research from Accenture, which features the first use of a new longitudinal data set to model the relationship between increases in Australian broadband speeds over time and key national economic indicators. The report estimates that a faster, high-capacity NBN network will increase gross domestic product by around $400 billion over the next 8 years to the end of the decade. This increase in GDP is forecast to be felt all across the nation, with increases in average broadband speeds having 16 times the impact in remote areas and twice the impact in regional areas than in capital cities. In a decade from 2012 to 22, the digital uplift created by the NBN network is estimated to have created 169,000 jobs and 87,000 new businesses. In 2022, Accenture found the GDP uplift created by the network was estimated to be $31 billion, and this rises annually to a forecast $68 billion per annum by 2030. So the future is bright and undoubtedly digital, and the NBN has proven to be the great equaliser and the great enabler. In my last appearance before the committee, I talked about the acceptance of NBN's special access undertaking with the ACCC. Since that time, as of 1 December, our new pricing under the new wholesale broadband agreement has come into effect. This represents an important milestone for the company and a watershed agreement for the industry. It delivers greater commercial and regulatory certainty for the entire industry, which means price certainty and collaborative efforts with clear lines of accountability for delivering customer service improvements. And lastly, I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the work the Government has commenced in relation to considering the future of the universal service obligation and the provision of telecommunications services to the bush through its Regional Telecommunications Independent Review Committee. Core to NBN's purpose is connecting Australians, no matter where they live or work, and we stand ready to contribute to this process and the future of the sector. So, Chair, Gavin and I are now very happy to take your questions. Thank you for letting me do that.
Thank you. Can I just say that I thought we were recommencing at 1:45, so my apologies.
No, that's quite all right. We figured we would just get through the opening statement and some questions that didn't require you for that. So, no, that's totally understandable, totally fine.
Me.
Senator Hughes.
No, Senator Hughes.
I'll go.
I was talking last.
Come on.
Well, we don't want you looking up any more porn. For those that missed it earlier.
Sorry, I was going to ask you, did I miss a conversation?
No, you missed an action.
Oh, right. Okay.
We just had the e-safety commissioner here and we were checking age verification and its current status. And
It's pretty weak.
Okay, so
pretty
I know it's late, but let's get a wriggle on. I'm sure you can find on X later.
Sorry, I forget. I don't get to ask the questions.
It came up very quickly, very fast internet. Mr. Rowe, could you explain how many connections the NBN lost in the category of existing homes or brownfield sites in 2021?
I don't have that figure with me, Senator, and that's a year when we were migrating customers from legacy networks onto NBN. So I would have thought it was a very substantial increase. I'll have to go back and have a look.
Perhaps if you can maybe, do you know 2022 if it went up or down in brownfield sites?
I don't, but that's easy to find from our. We do a weekly report, so that'd be easy to see.
All right, and what about 2023? Do you have any idea how many
Are you talking calendar 23?
year? Brownfield sites?
There's approximately 30,000 less premises in brownfield, but well and truly offset by increases elsewhere, which is why the number of customers I think I said in my statement, the number of customers have grown, or customers' homes, has grown by 50,000 in the last calendar year.
And that's greenfield sites?
Greenfields, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But there's greenfields and fixed wireless and so on. But all of our network, from satellite, fixed wireless, greenfields and brownfields added together, grew by 50,000 in the last calendar year.
Okay.
And I think it's 24,000 since June.
Okay, so brownfield sites are existing homes, as opposed to greenfields, which are new developments.
Sort of. the way that our that's broadly right, Senator. The way that our reporting goes, though, is that it was set up originally, which we still do on a weekly basis, but it was set up originally to show the progress of NBN as it was building its initial network and migrating legacy customers across. So any greenfield premises that were built since, I think it's 2014, I might stand correct on that, but around that date, are still treated as greenfield. Now, of course, after a while, a greenfield premise becomes an existing premise, if you like. Yeah, exactly. But so it is brownfield premises as they existed in 2014 is what they are.
Okay. So why are brownfields falling?
Well, as I said in my opening statement, the NBN spent its if you like, its growth phase, or when it was building an initial network and then people were migrating off legacy networks onto NBN, there was a substantial movement of, obviously, people moving on to NBN. There was an 18-month period when they could choose to move on after an area was declared ready to connect. But you wind forward post, if you like, the build and that initial migration, and the competition against NBN has significantly grown. So, as I said in my statement, there's competition from, obviously for greenfields, there's competition in some multi-dwelling units, there's competition from mobile operators with 4G and 5G, there's competition with Starlink, there's competition with, not just Starlink, but low-orbit satellites, there's small wireless players and so on. So the competition is significant, and there is heavy marketing, as you can imagine, from some of those players into areas where NBN has services. What consumers tell us, though, is that the primary reason that they choose another service provider is either their perception that they want to get a higher speed, or their perception of the quality of service that they have on an NBN service.
So they're not moving to 5G because it's cheaper, or, I mean, the perception. No, the perception. Reality, you know.
No, the perception is largely. For example, there are lines on our, particularly on our copper-based fibre to the node premises, which are at the end of the line, if you like. So there may be. This is the physics how it works. But if you are, let's say, a kilometre or more than a kilometre from the node, the length of the copper line means that the speeds you get may be 25, 30, 35, and you may want a faster speed. That, of course, is one of the many, many reasons why we're building out fibre. And so if they want to get a higher speed than that copper line can provide, they may, and to be clear, it's 30,000 out of a base of 8.6 million customers on our network. It's a small number, but you know, I understand what you're asking. They may choose, therefore, to get a higher speed from for example, from a 5G mobile or a 5G fixed wireless access. Not only that, clearly those homes are marketed heavily because they are the ones that are, if you like, a way that the mobile operator can see a customer who may want a higher speed, and they know that the physics means they can't get that from fibre to the node. Equally, there are some lines that copper degradates over time, so therefore the number of faults on a copper line may increase. Again, that is a reason why customers have a perception of the quality of the service and they may choose to go to another player. What I would say to you is that over time, our network is built to carry large volumes of data. And obviously a fibre link in particular, or a HFC service, can provide, gigabit services. So over time, data is going to grow significantly. That's another way of saying people are going to use the internet more for more things, or for applications which use a lot of bandwidth. Our network is built to carry large volumes of data. The mobile operators, the fixed wireless operators, it's what's called a shared network. So they're not actually built to carry large volumes of data. If you look at the data carried on our network, it's fixed line networks. It's high 80% of all data carried in Australia. A lot of people think they're using a mobile phone at home. Actually, they're probably on Wi-Fi, actually using the NBN network. So over time, I think you can be confident, Senator, that because our network is built for high speeds and is built for large amounts of data, that we will be very, very competitive. We'll continue to be. We're competitive today, but we'll be increasingly competitive going forward.
Okay, so that's the connections at home, to brownfields and greenfield sites. With regards to satellite connections, and I know we talked about this previously.
Yeah.
I've had a bit of a look around, and at the 30th of June 2021, satellite connections were 111,630.
Yep.
On the 1st of Feb 2024, so not very long ago, it's 88,134.
Yep.
So I guess what my concern is we've seen, people who've been brownfield sites, their numbers, they're moving off, they're moving away.
Well, Sandra, it's very few numbers, and I've told you the reason.
Just bear with me for a minute. But they are going backwards for the first time. We've got satellite numbers declining. I mean, I guess, have we kind of passed the peak of the NBN?
No, I'll let Mr. Williams. He's the expert in all things satellite, so he can talk to you about that 111 to 88. Now, for quite the opposite, Senator. Firstly, I point out that the number of Australians using NBN today, compared to the time when I was here last in Senate, is more. The number of customers on our network continues to grow. And in terms of are we past the peak, far from it. I mean, I say, I have a favourite phrase actually that I talk to all our staff about, people who work at NBN, and I say it because I mean it, that the best years of NBN continue to be ahead of us in the future. And the reason is because the applications that are being built, the businesses that are increasingly going to use new applications, digitise their business and so on. All the investment that's been made in AI or augmented reality, virtual reality, large screen televisions and so on, is going to mean that there's more and more and more data being used. That's why people are investing in data centres, in subsea cables, in intercity fibre, all around the world. That's why there's a lot of investment into also new applications, because we are going to see a large volumes of traffic. And as I said, NBN is built for fast speeds on fibre and HFC, and it's also built for large volumes of data to be carried. So to say that we've reached the peak, far from it, Senator. We are going to see we continue to be a growth business. And as I said, we've grown this year as well.
So, and when you say you've grown this year, is that grown in market share as well? I mean, because obviously as the market does expand and the requirements expand, there will be more competitors.
I'd have to do the math, because we win today around about 3 in 4, or slightly more than that, of new developments that are competitive. and we're also the provider of last resort. So I'd have to do the math because we're winning more than our fair share. Well, not more than our fair share. We're winning a good percentage of new developments, and as I said, there's a small churn, but it's largely from those perception of either not enough speed or not enough stability of lines. Okay. In terms of satellite, Gavin, do you want to?
Yeah, sure, Mr. Real. I've responded to satellite numbers in previous testimony in this place before. But just to reinforce the point that the satellite footprint has always been subject to competition, but now there is competition, new waves of technology, new waves of competition. So the fact that customers are choosing different technologies, well, frankly, I think it's a positive thing, as Mr. Roos said, the outcome of competition in the bush. Before Sky Muster was launched in the first place, there was all talk about the data drought in the bush. People aren't talking about the data drought in the bush anymore. So the strategy that we employ is to utilise the fact that we're building upwards and outwards our fixed wireless product, enabling us to plan not for a 400,000 footprint for satellite, but less than that, reimagining the capacity management on that product to enable us to fulfil the biggest customer blocker that we've had plenty of feedback on over the years around data anxiety and caps. So since, as Mr. Roos said in his opening statement, since the last appearance here, launching, in our words, low-end uncapped plans, extraordinarily cost-effective plans, $0 installs, professionally maintained, competitive monthly charges for uncapped data. And if you look at your numbers, you'd see in the last calendar year, we've declined to just over 12,000 or so. Around just over 10,000 of that was in the first half since we launched Sky Muster Plus Premium, which is north of 2,000. And as Mr. Roos said...
Sorry, 2,000 new customers?
No, the decline has reduced from 10,000 in the first half to about 2,000.
Okay, so slowing decline.
So slowing decline.
Sorry.
As customers choose, and the 31,000 around 7 months, the customers choose to take advantage of these new plans. So look, I think it's a wholly positive thing for the bush that these kind of new options are available. And for NBN's part, we're pushing the technology, not just in relation to our plans for individual homes, but looking to deploy that technology in new and innovative ways, such as pilots in First Nations communities, supporting community-based Wi-Fi to support digital inclusion. I note the announcement today that we're pleased to see the opportunity to expand that program based on Sky Muster as well.
And Sandra, could I just also add, I mean, the reason we're making investment in fibre is because Australians will need reliable, more stable lines, if you like, going forward, and they will also need higher speeds, which augurs well for the company, because that's what Australians are going to need, and that's what we're going to be providing. So, no, we're far from the peak of NBN.
Mm-hmm. So, if you can maybe take on notice for me, just give us end of 2022, end of 2023,
yeah, sure.
Market share both in the satellite market and fixed wireless.
In the satellite market?
Oh, well, I mean, because since Starlink came in, maybe what your market share is there, and then also fixed wireless or for the...
Well, yeah, our fixed wireless customers is growing.
Yes, fixed wireless grew.
Sorry, I got to admit, I'm not the most technical of people, so I am sort of, floundering my way here through acronyms and...
I think I know what you're asking.
Yeah,
so market share. What things you share a market with? All
the market share. If you could just give us a bit of a comparison.
No problem.
That would be lovely. Thank you. I'm happy with that block.
Cool.
Very technical, savvy person.
Thanks very much. You said in the opening you've got 1.99 billion EBITDA.
Yeah.
What was the net result?
So, when you say net result, you mean the net profit after tax?
Net profit loss after depreciation.
Yep.
Depreciation.
Bear with me 1 second, Sandra. I'm sorry. This is our half-year result presentation. We're on the website, by the way. So net loss after tax, you're asking for the half year?
Or yeah. Oh, no, for the year.
696 million loss.
For the half year?
Yeah.
Okay. How is your cash flow gone? That's a big loss. What's the cash flow?
Yeah, I think if you bear with me 1 second, I'll answer that by explaining the statutory P&L result. When you look at our statutory result that goes down to that net profit after tax or net loss after tax, our revenue grew 5%, our EBITDA grew 10%, and our earnings before interest also grew 10%. That was despite the fact there was a $150 million increase in depreciation. Depreciation is just an accountant's way of taking to the profit and loss a capital expenditure that was spent many years ago. The reason why that increased is because the finance team re-estimated the useful lives of some fixed wireless assets. It's non-cash, it's just accounting. The second reason is that our interest costs rose, and there's no surprise in that because of two things. We've got a larger debt, as you can imagine, as we continue to invest, and because interest rates have clearly the bond market is higher rates. The third reason is, and I probably shouldn't spend too long on this, but it's an income tax expense of $147 million. We're not going to pay tax for for a decade plus. This is just because of movement on hedges. It's what's called hedge accounting.
No, I get that. You've got accrued losses.
It's nothing to do with cash. So when you actually look at that loss, although it looks on face value to be, what's going on, actually there's a lot of accounting in there that's non-related.
That's why I asked about the cash flow.
So that's why I asked about cash flow. I'm sorry, I didn't want to leave that out without. So our operating cash flow. So our operating cash flow grew from 1.6 billion to 1.8 billion. It's on, Sandra, may I help you? It's on page 14 of our presentation, half-year results. Right. That should be on the website.
Yep.
I'm happy to table it if it helps you.
So that is in the last 6 months?
Yeah.
So what were the previous 6 months?
The previous 6 months was 1.6 billion, and it was 1,608 to be precise.
No. So that's the difference. What was the previous 6 months before the 1.6? We've gone 1.6 to 1.8. What was it? I
have to find that for you if you bear with me. But it was less. But I'll have to find that.
It was less. So cash is always growing.
That's operating cash. Out of operating cash, though, we pay capital expenditure, and the capital expenditure grew from this is cash, 1.4 to 1.9, but that's offset by $546 million equity payment from the Commonwealth. Our lease payments grew a little bit. That's because of inflation on certain infrastructure arrangements with primarily Telstra. And then our interest grew, as I talked earlier, from 300 million to 400 million. So the operating cash flow grew from 1.6 billion to 1.8. The free cash flow went from 600, a loss of 623. When you take the equity injection from the government, it improved to 514. So it's an improving result. Now we have a high level of capital expenditure at the moment, which you'd expect. We're building out the fixed wireless upgrade. We're building out the more fibre in the copper-based areas. So our capital expenditure will continue. Our operating cash flow should continue to grow, but our capital expenditure for the next few years will
be. So total cash flow will decrease?
It decreased, yes, 514 million. But that's really because of the high level of CapEx we have today.
Okay, talking about CapEx.
Yeah.
A lot of it's linked to the FTTP rollout, the increase in that, my understanding.
Yes, it is. Again, Sandra, page 12 of the presentation.
Yep. So, how, on average, can you confirm the cost per household of installation of the FTTP rollout, the fibre to the premises? On brownfield, not greenfield.
The lead-in is around about $1,400, but we hope to improve that. And trying to remember the cost for the. I'm genuinely trying to remember the cost for the. I think it's $1,250. I think it is per premise for the build fibre in the street. So if you add them together, that's
2,600.
Use that as a rough.
So if we're rolling this out, that's a lot of months of broadband to increase. Is there a lock-in for that if someone locks into that, or is they tied into a contract? Or what?
So the benefits from that over time are a few things, Senator. It gives the opportunity for customers who currently on fibre to the curb can get 100 megabits per second to get higher speeds, and it gives the ability for customers on fibre to the node who have between 25 and 100 megs, gives them the opportunity for higher speeds. So there's clearly for the company there's an opportunity for revenue growth.
What's the difference in price between 100 megabits per second and 50 megabits?
Again, you have to go by industry averages, but it's about $5.
Sorry?
It's about $5 a month.
Okay.
The second reason for that, though, is the ability, it's like Senator Hughes was asking me earlier, it's the ability for us to ensure we retain customers on our network and grow customers on our network by having a fibre-based network. The penetration rate, what we call penetration, I mean the number of homes who take up an NBN service in an area that's served by fibre to the premise is higher than the percentage of homes that take up a service in a fibre to the node area, for example. There are reasons for that. Some of that's demographics, but a lot of that is the reliability of services. So, and the speed you can get, So the second reason is to help us retain and grow customers. The third reason is our operating costs reduce. For a whole pile of reasons, IT systems are easier. It also takes costs out of the industry too, by the way. It also means that our operating expenditure will reduce because there are less faults on the network and less complex business to operate. So a combination of increase in average revenue per user, reduced operating costs, reduced capital costs as well, and increased penetration of the number of people on our network is the reason why it makes financial sense for us to do that.
$5 increase in revenue.
Sorry, and on top of that is better. Of course, there is the policy driven, which is to ensure that Australia builds its economy, like I was talking about in the essential research, provides a more opportunity for people to have health and education, reach government services, and ensures that Australia is competitive internationally. So it's good for policy, but for NBN itself, it's also a good investment.
Okay. So how long do we lock someone in for if they do the conversion from copper to fibre to the premises?
It's a relationship with the retailer.
So you don't make the whole. Don't make the retailer sign up for a certain length of time if they do.
No, what we say is that the customer should sign up to if they want a fibre to the premise service, and they're on a copper base. If they're on a FTTN service, we require them to order 100 megabit per second service. If they're on a fibre to the curb or above, fibre to the curb, we require them to purchase a 250 megabit per second or above service, i.e. a faster speed than they get today.
So, saying going the $5 a month upsell on a $2,650 installation, at that, not saying lower cost, they have to remain customers for 530 months or 44.1 years.
That's
on cash recovery, not this sort of stuff. If you double that for the savings, that's still 22 years.
So it's the wrong way to look at it, Senator, because you're taking the 50 to 100. Of course, a lot will go from 50 to higher speeds, or from 12 and 25 to 200. So
what's the difference between that?
It depends on
industry average. What's the price?
$20-25 uplift that could be.
Okay, so we're down to 10 years.
And Senator, you need to factor in the fact that we will over time, if we don't, the sort of question that Senator Hughes was asking me, roll forward 5 years when data there's a lot of data that people, and speeds that people need, and we have people on 25 megabits per second. We will lose competition in the market. So that you need to factor in the fact that we will have more customers on our network on a fibre-based, faster service. And you've got to factor in...
But you have to keep them for 20 years.
No, but Senator, you don't, because you're just doing it on revenue. There's revenue, there's operating cost, there's capital cost, and there is the opportunity...
You're spending the capital cost, $2,000 to put it on.
We reduce capital costs going forward.
What capital costs?
Copper remediation, the need to replace equipment like what we call distribution point units or DPUs in fibre to the curb. When you put fibre in the ground, basically it's a 50, 60-year investment.
Yeah,
So the investment, so the expenditure we will have to do going forward reduces in capital and operating costs. We will increase the number of customers on our network, and we'll have higher average revenue per user. The investment that we're making makes sense financially for NBN, and it obviously makes sense from a policy point of view. That's why, Senator, you've got to look at infrastructure companies build for a decade or or beyond. They don't build for tomorrow.
You've got to build for 4 decades at this rate of return.
Sorry, Senator.
You've got to build for 4 decades at that rate of return.
No, Senator, you have to trust me. I've done the math. I haven't done. My team has done the math on this. Those 4 factors gives us absolutely gives us a financial return on this investment.
How many do you plan on rolling out in a calendar year, FTTP connections from copper?
In a calendar year?
Yep. Well, financial year. Yeah. How many?
Well, let me rather than give you projections for the future, but we're taking at the moment 7,000 orders a week on average. There was a week in. I said that in my opening statement. There was a week in December where the orders were just shy of 9,000. We have released in the last few months a lot of footprint, and the retailers are on the market. So I would expect that 7,000 to grow. That gives you an indication of the sort of run rate that we're going to have. But we will be building lead-ins to the end of the decade.
So that's this year we would expect probably just under another $1 billion cash flow churn in building the infrastructure to put these 7,000 per week. That
$1 billion is before equity from the government.
Right. So you're expecting more equity from the government?
The government has committed to $2.4 billion, up to $2.4 billion equity funding for the company to build out 1.5 million additional homes in the fibre to the node footprint. And I can pleasingly tell you that we've been asked to do that by December 25, and we're well on track to do that. So between now and December 25, we will be incurring more capital expenditure. The fibre build in the street, of which is covered by government equity funding. Lead-ins is an NBN expense, if you like. It's all an NBN expense. I should say there's no equity funding for the lead-in.
What's current balance sheet position of the NBN? What's your net assets?
I don't know at December, but this will give you a feel for it at the. So our total assets are at the end of June was 38 billion, and the net assets was negative 3 billion. But again, Senator, that's not before you think that's terrible, for because that was your next question, for a infrastructure builder, that's very normal, because you build out assets and you depreciate them, and the depreciation is effectively why that's. And also, as you build, you have operating expenditure, and that flows through the losses as well.
Have you, in your projections going forward on your business case, I'm sure the answer will be yes, but to justify the rollout of this fibre net, are you looking at potential increased technology? You know, we're talking about 5G now, talking about wireless. Are you looking at new technologies, new systems that actually may, over the payback, cashback period of this investment, actually diminish the viability of these things? Are you discounting the growth?
I think, Senator, that what we will continue to see build out of new technologies. There's no doubt. If you take low orbit satellites, they're only, when do they start, Gavin? 4 years?
Yeah.
3.5 years. If you take low orbit satellites, that will continue to evolve. If you take What we've done with fixed wireless, with a combination of 5G and 4G, we'll continue to expand that, but I'm sure there will be competition there as well, and 5G will become 6G and 6G will become 7G. However, our network, I can't say this enough, our network is built to carry large volumes of traffic at the same time, or concurrent use. It's not, there's some sharing of networks, but it broadly enables people to have whatever data that they need. We are on the verge of seeing explosions of data. AI, generative AI, VR, AR, all that sort of stuff is going to, in my view, change the way that we live, the way we work, the way we entertain, the way we connect with each other. And that is going to lead to increasing volumes of data. At the end of the day, fibre is built for a long time. Fibre is able to all you have to do is pull electronics at the end of fibre, and you can go from
Light
1
it up
gig
when she
to
goes,
5 gig to 10 gig to 25 gig. And fibre is reliable. Fibre is also green, by the way.
And
so,
I understand
Senator, there will always be competition. We will never have 100% market share.
I'm not asking that. It was about, did you discount the value and the value of this on the business case as you went
Senator,
forward?
because we don't, because we
Thank
have not assumed that we'll get to ridiculous levels of penetration.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Senator Henderson, do you have questions?
I might go to someone else first if you allow us to sit in the call.
Senator Payman, but once we're done, we're moving on. If you could,
I'll come back to you.
because they're supposed to be leaving in 2 minutes.
I'll keep it brief.
Hi.
Good evening. So in October 2023, the ACCC accepted a new special access undertaking from NBN Co.
Yes.
What impact did this have on the wholesale prices across the 6 key NBN residential plans?
Okay. So the special access undertaking was enshrined, if you like, on the 1st of December, again in my opening statement, in what we call a wholesale broadband agreement. And so since the 1st of December, what we have done is reduce the prices effectively of 5 of our 6 major plans. The one that did go up, which is the 50/20 plan, on average across the industry, it went up on average about 2%. When you look at what came down and when you look at that small increase, what we call our average revenue per user will not change this year. In fact, it hasn't changed for almost 2 years. And that's another way of saying the average cost to the industry has not changed. So over the last 2 years, which has been years, as I don't need to tell the senators, of a high inflation environment, our access cost to the industry has not changed on average. That is an average, to be fair, but on average, our cost has not changed to the industry. So the impact of the SAU has been that as I said, our average revenue per user is flat this year and the costs have not gone up. Because 5 came down and 1 went up by about 2%.
Okay, and just in regards to the original SAU submission in March 2022 under the former government, on how many residential NBN plans were wholesale prices going down?
I don't recall. I'd have to take that on notice, Senator. I'm sorry. I don't. I've been focused on this arrangement. I'm sorry. I'll have to take that on notice.
No, that's okay, Mr. Reid. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Senator Henderson, did you have some questions?
Thank you very much, Chair.
Good evening.
Mr. Rice, good evening. Could I ask you what is the total number of customers who previously had an NBN plan who no longer have an NBN plan? So the abandonment rate.
That's impossible to answer for me, and the reason for that is because customers, we only know premises, we don't know customers. The customer relationship is with the retailer. So to try and explain, Senator Henderson, if you moved into Senator Hughes's house, you've moved, but I don't know. All I know is that that particular house is a connection. So I don't know the answer to your question.
So you're not able to determine or track the number of Australians who previously had an NBN plan who no longer have one?
I don't know the individual customers, no, because that information is held by retailers. But even retailers, customers move between retailers. So customers move between retailers, customers move between houses. All I see is houses connected. I don't see customers connected.
And what about premises?
I would have to take that on notice, Sandra. I don't
So
know
the total number of
question.
premises.
And again, that would be up and down depending on people moving, people who had rented accommodation. I can see if we can get that for you, Sandra, but it won't give you an indication because people move all the time. A lot of renters move from one premise to another. International students come in and so on. So I can see if I can get you the information, but it doesn't actually tell you whether people have moved on or off NBN. All I can tell you is the number of premises on a network today is, as I was saying to Senator Hughes, I think before he came in, Senator Henson, but there are more people on the NBN network today than there were the last time I was at the hearing, and the last time before that I was at the hearing. They continue to grow.
What are your long-term forecasts
Well,
for number of premises?
I don't, Senator, I don't like to answer about long-term forecasts because of, I'm sorry, I know we've discussed this before, but because of the substantial amount of borrowings that we have on international markets prohibits me from giving any future forecasts, and I don't want to mislead any or be seen to misleading any lender in terms of future forecasts. What I would say is that I expect that the number of premises on our network will continue to grow.
So when you say it's your expectation, what basis?
Sorry, I missed that, sorry.
When you say it is your expectation
Yep.
that the number
Yep.
of premises will grow,
Yep.
What's the basis for holding that expectation?
A whole pile of things, and it's kind of
asking
goes...
you to breach your loan covenants is one thing, but...
No, I understand. Let me... I'm kind of going to be a bit repetitive, I'm sorry, but it's a whole pile of reasons. The amount of investment that's being made all around the world in advance of big consumer breakthroughs on the back of AI, generative AI, augmented reality, virtual reality, and so on, and other things like large screen TVs, connected homes, and so on, and business applications, means that the amount of the data on our networks is already growing at 10% per annum. It will continue to grow, and I think that will explode, and the expectations is that will grow significantly. That's why data centres are being built. That's why fibre, subsea cables are being built. Intercity fibre is being built all around the world, and intercity fibre is being built. So the amount of data that will be consumed by people means that they need NBN more and more. That's the first point. Second point is, as we build out more fibre, that will give more Australians reliable services with less reason to call up their retailer to get NBN to fix a fault, but will also give access to those higher speeds. Penetration in a fibre to the premise footprint is higher than the penetration in a fibre to the node footprint, for example. So we expect there'll be more customers on the network from that alone. Plus, new developments keep getting built. The population of Australia continues to expand, and as it does, new developments are built. And again, as I was saying, I think before you came in earlier, 3 in 4 of those in competitive areas tend to choose NBN for a whole pile of reasons to provide their service. So all those reasons, population growth, the fact that data will grow, and the fact that more people will need our network and will want faster and reliable services is the reason for that.
Mr. Rue, will you be asking the government for any more funding support?
What has always been the case, Senator, is that let me answer that a different way. If the government chooses to continue to invest more in NBN in other areas of our business, well, then clearly that would be something that they would look to fund. That's a matter for them, and you honestly, you maybe you asked Senator Brown, but that's not a question for me. Do I need funding for the ongoing operations of our current business? No. But there are areas like today where we've been asked to provide what's called community Wi-Fi services for Indigenous communities. That will be funding from the government, but that's a policy-driven thing. In terms of ongoing day-to-day operations of the business, no, Senator, that we have borrowings, and that we've borrowings alongside the equity the government has given us, and that's our capital base, and that's what we run our business off.
So you have no plans or nothing in the works to seek more funding from the government?
I have no, other than for where, again, as I said, if the government asks me to say, can you do more remote communities, which is what we did get asked, and we said we can, but this is what it will cost, and that clearly will be funded by government. Other than those sort of examples, Senator, no.
So has that proposal been made, that the community Wi-Fi and Indigenous communities?
Yes, an announcement today around an expansion of a pilot and proof of concept that we deployed in 4 communities over the last 18 months or so. The announcement today is to expand that to around about 20 additional communities. The precise communities, that still needs to be worked through. And
so has additional money been provided for that program?
Well, no grant agreement's been signed yet. It was a subject of an announcement today. Additional funding would be made available for us to be able to make those investments and deliver that capability in those communities.
Mr Rue, is the board comfortable with NBN taking on more debt?
Beyond the current
what you're carrying at the moment?
No, Senator. We've set, as a board, we have set ourselves, if you like, that the $27.5 billion that we talked about September 2020, I think it was. We want to run our business based upon that $27.5 billion borrowings and based upon, obviously, the equity that the government has provided to us. As I said before, if the government wants to do further policy, well, clearly that is something that management and the board will be looking for government clearly to provide funding for. But but for our existing business, as we're running it today, we want to manage our business based upon our current.
So you're saying that you could continue operations with no more government investment?
That's correct, Senator. That's our obligation. That's our job to run the business that way. Yes.
In meeting all of your growth targets, meeting population growth targets and,
yes.
And the like?
Yes. And the reason for that, Senator, is because our revenue will continue to grow. Will continue to grow because we do continue to grow customers. The capital expenditure on our business will reduce, and it will reduce as we get through this period of completing the fixed wireless build that Mr Williams is leading and completing the fibre build in the outside people's homes. We still will have capital expenditure on lead-ins, which will be our biggest spend over the next decade. But the level of capital expenditure will reduce and enable us to have a basis to run our business based on the revenues we have. We'll be able to manage our operating expenditure, our financing costs, and the capital we need to spend the business.
I know a number of questions have been raised about the fall in your satellite business.
We've been through that.
Which I think I started asking you about, very soon after the government was elected, because it was clear pretty early on that your competitor was putting into the market a very compelling offer. What do you have by way of plans to improve your satellite offering? How are you going to combat Starlink, as well as low orbit satellite more generally?
I think I'll let Mr Williams talk. I actually sorry, Sandra, I think you weren't here, but I dealt with some of the new products in the opening statement that we have on satellite. I just want to put one thing to bed, though, that the low orbit satellites is a good service for people in remote parts of a certain part of Australia. It's not something that's going to be pervasive through the whole of the country, just to be very clear. So we're talking about a specific competition against a small cohort of customers, just to be clear. But do you want to talk about products we're doing in satellite?
Yeah, Senator, I think you might not have been here when we covered some of the new products.
I don't want you to repeat. So yeah, to the
It's
extent
in the opening.
It's in the opening statement.
Basically, Senator, we've introduced a faster speeds on satellite because we're able to do fixed wireless and because with faster speeds without a data
which is a
cap.
very important coalition initiative, I have to say.
Without any data caps, and that's there are some fair use policies, but that enables people in regional Australia for the first time to have a Sky Muster satellite service and not worry about running out of data after a few days. Simple choice.
So you lost 2% of your customers, satellite customers, in January alone. Why did that happen? I mean, that's a big bleed.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at base movements within a short period, like a month, I think you need to look at them over a slightly longer term. If you look at over, we covered these numbers again, Senator, I think just before you came in, but over the last calendar year, we lost around about 12.5, just north of 12,500, around 10,000 of that in the first half. Prior to us launching the uncapped plan for Sky Muster Plus Premium, and prior to us launching the groundbreaking, much lower cost plans in December.
So were those 12,500, were they accounts, were they customers?
Well, similar to Mr Rue's testimony before, what we see are premises that are connected or not connected, active customers.
Active customers, per
which you can see those numbers in our weekly disclosure.
We see the premises, not the customers.
The premises. So what happened in January? I mean, that was a very significant loss of customers just in 4 weeks.
Well, one thing that happened there was our retailers have periodic clean-outs of customer base. So it's not the case, for example, typically that if a customer were to leave a retailer, that a cancellation order would land in NBN's lap concurrently. Oftentimes, some of these cancellations are batched, and there'd be some of that activity going on in the January numbers. But again, Senator, I think to look at a period of only 4 weeks in the context of base moves is it's really too short a period. But
well, I know. I appreciate that, except that it was such a large number of customers that you lost.
So the unusual thing, Senator, that occurred, as we're aware, is around clean-up activity in retailers.
Could you provide the committee with more information in that respect? Because, that might partly explain the loss of customers, but it's got nothing to do with your competitors?
Oh, I mean, Senator, I've provided testimony, I think, directly to questions that you've raised in this House, in this committee before, around where customers are going. And I can
the Starlink offering
just
looks so much superior, and the price has dropped dramatically. And every single farmer or anyone on any piece of land across this country is basically saying, why would you have the NBN when you can have Starlink?
Well, Senator, our Sky Muster Plus premium plans have grown in 7 months to about 31,000, offering retail plans now since December for uncapped data in a world where you don't have to pay $399 for equipment, you pay $0, in a world where you have local support for retailers and monthly fees of we have retailers offering those plans at $45 a month, not
But the connection, so many people are pulling their hair out with the connection, and I mean, you might have a slightly better product on offer, but it is chalk and cheese. And if I look at the loss of customers over 13 months, it's a loss of some 15%. I mean, that is very significant. Your satellite business is bleeding, which is, Mr Rue, with respect, the very concerns that I raised more than 18 months ago.
Senator, there's no doubt we face competition. There's no doubt about that. And I don't think it actually should concern you, because competition is good for everybody. I said this again in my opening statement. We continue to build out our fixed wireless network. We are going to move. There's a cohort of 120,000 customers who can get satellite today, who at the conclusion of our program, which is only 10 and a half months away, we'll be able to get a fixed wireless service which will provide the 400 megabits per second. Most of them will be able to get up to 400 megabits per second. So we continue to invest in our business. We continue to provide better and better service to regional Australia. We're also building fibre in regional Australia. So we'll continue to advance the services we do. I'm sure competitors will also continue to do that as well.
So, Mr. Roy, look, I'm going to have to finish up.
Yeah, sure.
I want to understand, you weren't able to give me the number of premises connected to the NBN previously and what they are now, in terms of just the movement of customers.
I can tell you the number of premises connected to NBN. We publish that. In fact, I can do that, but we publish that weekly. So on a weekly basis, Senator, you can see how many premises are connected to NBN. What I can't tell you is whether Senator Henderson is on NBN or not.
I understand that. It's on a premises type.
But I can tell you, and the premises we publish on a weekly basis, so they're all there.
I would ask you to take on notice the issue about your forward projections for growth. I appreciate the point you raised.
I've answered the question, though, Senator. I can't tell you any more than that. I can't tell you the number because I can't get into future forecasts of where we see our business going for the reason I described. But I do see growth for all the reasons I outlined.
I would like you to take that on notice and come back to the committee with more information about that.
It'll be the same answer, though.
All right, we might need to take that up with you separately. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ray. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you.
We will now let you go.